Welcome back to the Coins and Connections podcast, where we explore all things books, business, and bullshit. My favorite bees. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Coins and Connections podcast, episode 49. Today I am going to talk about the decade challenge, and I am going to reveal my 2020 word. I kind of just want to overview this decade and share some lessons learned, places I visited or I've lived, anything about marriage and motherhood, and just my business transformations along the way. I may not touch on everything, but I kind of just wanted to talk about things that have happened, things that have been revelations for me, changes that I've gone through over the decade, and just kind of talk about where I am now and how I feel about business life in general going further. So this will just be a decade overview challenge chart. So just listen and see if anything relates to you as well. Anything that you seem similar to what you've done are dealt with in our over this decade. Most of the decade I spent in my 20s. So I just turned 32 2 years ago. So most of my decade I spent in my 20s, and I lived a lot. I did a lot of things, met a lot of people, went a lot of places. So we are going to just go ahead and get into that in this episode. So I get asked a lot, how did you start your podcast? Where do I begin? How can I start a podcast? Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. You know, I'm down with the free. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Like, ain't nobody listening yet and you making money. How dope is that? It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So what are you waiting on? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So I know a lot of people are starting with 2010, but I just want to quickly say that in 2009, I had my second child, which was a girl, and I was living in South Carolina. And within 2 years, 2 or 3 years, 2010 through 2012, I had lived in South Carolina. I had lived in New York, Maryland, and then at the start of 2012, I moved to Georgia. So there was a lot going on in that period of life. And then from 2012 to 2014, I lived in Georgia. From 2014 to 2017, I lived in Kansas. And then from 2018 to now, I live in Virginia. So for me, the decade started off a little rough, and it was just, to me, I always say it was like the actual real start to my marriage, because the first 5 years we basically spent as dual military, had a child, moved in together, and went through 2 deployments. I got out of the military. It was rough. We went through some stuff. We were super young. We were 19 at the start of our marriage, and we both grew up being the first time like we were truly away from home and on our own, raising a child, being married. It was a lot. So the start of the decade was really the start of my marriage, even though we had been married for a few years by then already. So it just it was rough. And then we went through I went through not working, trying to figure out what kind of work I wanted to do for myself. Probably a lot of questions of just what am I doing, what's next, and I questioned a lot of things in the first couple of years of the decade. And I will say that my years that I spent in Savannah brought a lot of learned lessons. I learned how to drop ship. I learned how to make money through secret shopping, and I even learned how to sew. So those were some great things that came out of that. I also made great friends, and I was able to have some pretty dope jobs actually. So like I started working as an event stand-in with this event staffing company, which led me to a fragrance vendor job at Belts in the mall, which paid really well, and I loved that, and I met some good friends there as well. I eventually became a tax pro because they give a scholarship to military spouses with H&R Block. So I did that, had my first tax season. I worked like crazy, which was also good. And my kids were both in school as well then. And then during the summer of tax season, I ended up getting a job. They built a new Hobby Lobby. I ended up getting a job there when they were getting the store together, and I ended up basically being the department head for the craft section. But because at that time I was getting ready to move, it was like I couldn't really get the job. So that sucked because I really loved that job. So I did have a pretty good work career in Georgia at the time before I had to move. Actually good paying jobs too, and good circle of friends. But between our move and then 2014 and 2015, things just got shaky again. Super shaky then around that time. So I'll go into the next segment. So you can't go through 10 years and not go through some stuff, and that's basically kind of what happened. So I would say my marriage suffered a little bit through that time. It was just so much going on in those couple of years that we needed to finally get back on track. And when we did get back on track, only for my husband to deploy for 9 months to Korea, I was working at my kids' school for the most part of our time in Kansas. And then towards the end, I did get a little bit more serious about my business, and I learned a lot more. More creative stuff started happening. I also signed to my first publishing company. I launched my first real business with a clear vision and plan. I started taking calls to help people. I built my social media platforms back up, because in the beginning of the decade, I was off social media for 2 to 3 years. And I think I got back on social media in 2015 or 2016. But yeah, from like late 2012 or 2013 through 2014, I was off of social media. So I built them back up. And also, I made the decision to just kind of move towards something bigger than me in my business. And I started naming my different products and the things that I was doing. I started giving them names. I started being consistent. I showed up. I was using things and creating things to help me move forward. I started writing more about my goals and dreams. I had like a vision, a plan, everything that I thought about, ideas that I had, I would write down. I would take notes. I would research and I would read. And from that, basically, I created Coins and Connections at the end of 2016, and I kind of worked towards it to be my first real business, and it has truly turned into something bigger than me. And that kind of brings me to where I am today, because all of the things I did this decade that pushed me forward. So in 2009, I made my first shirt, and in 2019, I can say I made over $50,000 working for myself and through my business. And I have goals that are bigger, and goals that are super big that I want to achieve. But this year really set a lot of things off for me, business wise, and just clarity and being able to see where I want to go with my business. Now that kind of brings me to the end, and I can't wait to do my 2019 year review for our last episode. My 2019 word was bigger, and I achieved that. So my 2020 20 word is strategy, and I will be saying I have a master plan. This word is going to be important for so many reasons, and I am excited to do the work and just improve in more ways than one. And I'm excited that you guys have just been on this ride with me for this year. It started off a little rocky. I wasn't as consistent, but I did pick that back up, and I'm excited that I am here now with the just more people listening, more people engaged, and just following along my journey. And they always say, you could be working forever, and then it's that 1 year that takes things to pop off. And I won't say that this was that type of year, but things did get pushed into motion a little bit better and a little bit further. And I would say a little bit more people know my name, and I just know I'm gonna plan more and just make sure I have my I's dotted and T's crossed so I can do things more efficiently with my strategy. So I'm excited about that, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. And again, like I always say, don't forget to like, I'm about to say like, comment, and subscribe like I'm on YouTube. Don't forget to review the podcast, share with somebody, send me a screenshot of you listening. I love to repost those. Any takeaways that you may have from the episode, please feel free to share with me as well. So until next time. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing. Don't forget to leave a review. If you have any questions, you can email me at hello@cinquantacoxsmith.com. Feel free to visit my websites, www.cinquantacoxsmith.com and www.coinsandconnections.com. You can follow me on Instagram at cinquantacoxsmith and at Coins and Connections. Feel free to visit my free Facebook group. It's called Books Plus Business Support Network. And I love you more than I love this podcast. Peace.